Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in data about Kagurabachi chapter number 93. This chapter is titled Finishing Touches. And Hokuzono, you took a week off last week. I say you take a week off, you actually did it in the slightest. You just gave us a Sojo bonus chapter, the same length as a regular chapter of manga, which Hokuzono, are you just going insane? Because that's a crazy thing to do, is hey, I'm gonna take a week off from the main story, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a side story. Here's 19 pages of a side story. But either way, Hokuzono took a week off, and he brought absolute heat this week. I don't know where I was going to be going with that, oh man, Hokuzono wrote a really good chapter or whatever. I mean, he did. It's a magnificent chapter that we get here, really split into, I guess it's really split into 3 parts, all things considered, and really every single one of the parts is really fun, not only focusing on the big fight between hey, we have Natuski, Uruha, Hukuto, and Yura all going at each other, but hey, what are the other Hishaku people doing right now? And also, hey, where's Kiri and all of our other people? So, really just getting all of these big ideas tied together is hey, where are all the factions currently in the Kagurabachi headquarters, and what are they all going to? And at the end of the chapter, this bigger idea of what is the underlying threat going on. And quickly, let me just say, for all of the people out there who think Ichiki is the traitor, I want you to keep telling me those theories after this video, because you're just wrong. There's no way. Do you see how Ichiki is acting here? He is not the traitor. And if he was, damn, I'm going to sound really, really stupid, you know what I'm saying? But Ichiki is not the traitor. Let me just put that out there. We also learned the name of a Hishaku member in this chapter as well, and it's just damn, that's really fun to know. And all things considered, just a really good chapter of Kagurabachi, and Hokuzono, you outdid yourself this week, and that's really just what I want to say before we go and get started on this chapter of Kagurabachi. But of course, before we talk about this chapter, let's quickly talk about what happened last time in chapter number 92 of Kagurabachi. And as I mentioned here a minute ago, we got a bonus chapter last week, but it was about Sojo. It has no bearing to the effects of this chapter, right? And the chapter 2 chapters ago, or really just one numerical chapter back, was chapter number 92, and there's where we saw pretty much the bigger fight between Hokuto, Natsuki, Uruha, and Yura all going on here. And that's really just what we saw. We saw them all going back and forth, Uruha having to come to terms hey, wait a second, I am a strong person, pretty much, right? And I need to remember all of the things I've done previously in my life to bring them into this battle and fight all out here in the moment, right? And we ended the chapter with all of our 4 main antagonists here, or all of our 4 battle people, right? Of course, Yura and Hokuto are the antagonists, and Natsuki and Uruha are the good guys in this scenario, right? But they all crashed into a fountain in one of the libraries of the... They've, changed so many floors. I don't know what floor they're on anymore, but one of the libraries in the Kagurabachi headquarters, they all fell into, this water pit, pretty much. And they were all just, staring at each other, standing pretty much here in, this circle. And Hokuto was just laughing, going, ha, 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 ha. And that's actually where we start off this chapter of Kagurabachi, is on that exact same note. As we see that Hokuto is just ha ha ha, oh my gosh, excuse me, and he's just laughing back and forth here, and Yura's eventually hey Hokuto, right? And eventually we just see Natsuki's hey, sorcery is allowed in this fight, right? And he's how come I'm the only one who used my sorcery back there, right? And he sort of looks over and says hey, what's your problem, Uruha? I know you can use your sorcery, so where is it, pretty much, right? And Uruha is just oh my god, I'm so sorry. It honestly just totally, slipped my mind. I haven't fought with it in 18 years, so, it just, didn't occur to me. I just didn't have time to think about it, you know what I'm saying, right? I just love how Uruha has this, deadpan expression, and eventually, laughs a little bit, going, hey, my bad, Natsuki, right? And Natsuki's are you just stupid? Of course, they're a little bit of a dynamic where Uruha's hey, we should be really good friends. And because of that, Natsuki's I want to fucking kill you, right? It makes for a really, really fun dynamic, right? But eventually we just see the Hokuto's hey, apologies, that's on me for making it an option back there, but I figured that you might be scared without your electrical leaking stuff, you know what I'm saying over there? And pretty much looks over to Natsuki. Natsuki's what are you saying to me, right? As I just love Hokuto. He just winks once here in the moment. All of this blood is running down the side of his face. He's got that cut on the bridge of his nose. And even still, he still just winks. A star shoots out of his eye over towards Natsuki. And it's hey, but I should have worried. Your swordplay is actually quite beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And Natsuki's huh. Well, you know what? Being that you complimented my sword strikes, we'll let the electrical leak comment, like, slide a little bit. You know what I'm saying, right? As also here in the moment, we just look over to Yura, who's got, like, this massive cut in on his side, and he's sort of, like, holding his arm, and he's like, ow, this sort of hurts, you know what I'm saying? But either way, Natsuki just looks back over and says, like, hey, all of that stuff aside, both of you two can go to hell. Isn't that right, Uruha? And Uruha's like, yeah, for sure. As Uruha now just takes a second and really gets an analytical look at both Yura and Hukuto, right? As he looks at Yura and just thinks like, hey, this guy isn't so much a master swordsman, it's more that his athleticism is really unreal. His swordplay is inconsistent, but he still gets in plenty of blows. And I really like this characterization of Yura, pretty much understanding like, hey, he is not the best swordsman out there, and we honestly don't know how his sorcery really functions. Like, one of my co-hosts on the podcast I'm on called the Kagurabachi Headquarters podcast, wow, it's sort of like we started that podcast up before we realized the next arc was going to be taking place in the Kagurabachi Headquarters, right? But one of the hosts on that podcast, actually, I say one of my co-hosts, I'm not a host in the slightest, I'm just a guy on there, our main host, his name is Karasu, and he always has had this theory that Yura's, like, eye rings and all of these things implanted in his body are Dotenseki, and that sort of, like, gives him some, like, buff to his sorcery or some sort of thing there. But really, we don't know what Yura's sorcery is currently, so it's sort of like, this is a bit of a bigger question on what's actually going on with him, and even still, hey, he's still a decent enough sword fighter. He can hold his own against Natsuki and Uruha, which is a really big deal at the end of the day, right? But either way, we then just see that Uruha looks over to Hukuto thinking like, hey, and as for this guy, we really just don't know the depth of his skill and the slightest, right? And he's like, hey, I can tell he's good with a sword, but he's also holding back at the same time. He seems more interesting in, like, savoring the fight instead of actually killing us here in the moment, right? And it's like, it's honestly a little bit creepy, as even here in the moment, Hokuto's just like, man, we've got some nice injuries going on, guys. Like, we need to keep this up. More injuries, it's going to be a better time for us fighting, you know what I'm saying? But even still, Uruha just thinks like, hey, but either way, the reason both these two guys can just go and pound sand is because I could tell he wasn't bluffing back there. Of course, this is whenever Hokuto is introducing him in Europe, saying like, hey, I killed Ibuki Masaka and Kunishige Rokuhira, and this guy right here beside me, he's our big bad leader, right? He's the leader of the Hishaku. You should, like, give him all of your treaties right now, right? Like, he's a big guy, he's an important guy, don't kill him, right? As of course, after remember this, Uruha just thinks like, hey, but either way, fighters this skilled are very few and far between, so I can tell that was the truth, right? And Uruha is just taking a stare into both these people here in a moment, as eventually Hukuto just speaks up once more again after his like, hey, we got some nice injuries, fellas comment, right? And he's like, hey, injuries are good. The pain gives you an adrenaline rush. It sharpens your focus. We're reaching the climax of this battle now, and I'm glad everybody's still sitting here and going strong. Whenever the first guy dies, I'd say let's all just sit down and take a break for a moment, you know what I'm saying? And we really just get a close-up shot on both Uruha and Natsuki's faces, and they're just like, yeah, we're gonna murder you first, pretty much, right? And either way, Yura then just like, hey, Hokuto, don't you think you're running your mouth a little bit too much? As Hokuto's like, nah, I'm done. As we just see that everybody gets in their preferred sword stance here in the moment. And it's really just fun how much we can tell about all of these characters by how they're holding their swords here in the bottom of, what is this, page number, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is bottom of page number 5. As you all see, they're like knee-deep in this water, pretty much. Of course, Uruha is holding his blade back in the reverse grip as the EI White Purity style typically does it. Natsuki is holding his two blades in that sort of like X pattern that we saw him holding them in whenever he pretty much busted onto the scene, the fight with Hokuto the first time, and that was like, what, 2 chapters ago at this point? Hokuto is a little bit of an interesting thing. He's holding out his stump, and he's got his sword turned upside down on top of his stump, and just holding it back, looking like he's pretty much going to use it as, like, to guide the sword wherever he wants it to. And Yura is just holding the sword pretty much that same upside down way, with the sharp edge of the blade facing the sky, pretty much, and just holding both of his hands up behind his shoulder, pretty much, and having the blade point in front of him, right? Just a really cool way to see how all these characters are drawn in a different way to hold their sword, pretty much, right? And then we just turn the page, and whenever we do, it is just a magnificent 2-page spread of all 4 of these characters entangled in battle. As we just see like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. It mainly looks like Yura has come through and tried to strike. Uruha has gone back and it's like their blades are clashed against each other. But Hukuto also here in the moment has gone through and has his blade going over facing towards Uruha while Natsuki sort of like deflecting all of the blades here in the moment, right? It is just a really, really cool panel, just seeing all of these characters and the way the perspective shot is drawn. It's just so incredibly awesome. And as much as I want to use this panel for the thumbnail, I'm probably not going to, because I think I'm going to probably use these small panels of like them all and just like holding their swords in a specific way. But even still, oh, this is just such a cool panel Hokuzono gave us here. And what can I say other than that? Man, this manga is amazing, right? But at this point, we sort of just, like, see all of them, like, go teleport away, like, just fighting there. And I say teleport away, more just, like, they're just, like, constantly, like, fighting. All of their, like, bodies are moving around. Like, they're just, like, zipping around really fast, right? As we now cut away from the scene, back down to the Kabanagi headquarters, underground level 5. As we see that a few of the regular just Kabanagi guys are sort of around here, like, in this crisis mode, like, looking around. As all of a sudden, a wall burst open behind them, and these two guys are like, oh, what's that, right? And one of these Kabanagi guys just sort of looks back and just sees like, oh no, that's a Hishaku mark on this guy's hand who just busted through that wall, right? As he sort of just like looks over, and we now get a very good look at who just burst your wall, and as we understand, it is the bald Hishaku. Except, whenever I first saw this panel, it's a full page spread, as we just see that it is the bald Hishaku, except his head is currently one of those massive Makos, or the demon bites. He has one Kabanagi guy just lazing out of his mouth pretty much, and another one in his hand, of course, with his Hishaku emblem pretty much underneath him, as he's sort of like lazily like just sitting here, like almost like squatting here in the moment, right? It's just a little bit of an interesting, like, turn page. Like, I would go, like, oh my gosh, a very cool, like, 2-page spread of Mokuzono. And then I flip page, and I'm like, what? Right? And I'm just like, oh, that's really interesting, right? But we see it like, yeah, the bald Hishaku, his ability is not just to create these things. Apparently, he can transform himself into one as well, right? And as this one Kabanagi guy is just sort of, like, looking here at the moment, like, oh, God, what do I do, right? All of a sudden, somebody just appears behind him, and it is the female Hishaku member. Here in a moment, though, we will learn her name. It's Uran. That's pretty neat, right? As I'm just going to call her Uran now, being that we get her name confirmed in, like, what's this, like, 6 panels or something like that. But either way, we just see that Uran appears here in the moment behind this Hishaku guy, or not Hishaku, this Kabanagi guy. She's like, hey, buddy, you're collapsing on me. Come on, get up and go at him, pretty much, right? And this guy's just like, oh, like, what is she talking about? As we see that she just comes over and starts to blow on this guy's neck, pretty much, right? And she's like, as all of a sudden, this guy's like, oh, that's gold. As we see, like, his entire head and his body where she just blew this air onto him completely freezes over here in the moment. And we even, like, see in the next panel, his entire body is just frozen solid, right? And she's like, oh, man, like that Kabanagi guys were supposed to be tough. And, like, you guys are just too cute doing all of this stuff pretty much, right? And we then see that Talo just, like, opens up through the thing. Just, I'm like, damn, like, it's not that they're, like, weak. It's just that you two are really, really strong. And we see that Uran's just like, I was waiting for you to say that, my man, right? But either way, as this guy is frozen solid, we then see the bald Hishaku just comes through and bites this guy's, like, top half of his torso off here in the moment, of course, with his Mako demon head thing. And she's like, oh, bingo, was it tasty? And we see this guy's just like, Uran, don't you ever listen. They're not tasty. I've said it a million times. As we see that his head sort of just like transforms back into his regular, like, bald head pretty much, right? As we just see like, hey, he's back to normal. I also don't know if whenever she says bingo here, if that is this bald Shaku's name, if his name is like bingo or something, or if she's like, bingo, like, what does it taste like? Hey, you actually hit the target, like, good job. I'm not 100% sure. It'd be really fun to have this guy named Bingo, but, like, it just, I don't quite know if that's how she's referring to him here in the moment. Probably the Japanese would be the correct spot to be like, oh, if she refers to him as, like, Bingo-san or something like that. Or if it's just like, hey, like, bingo, you hit the nail on the head pretty much, right? But either way, we do know this girl's name is Uran because of what this bald Hishaku guy calls her here on the next panel, right? But either way, he's just like, hey, but I have to eat all these people or I can't use my powers. Like, I don't really have a choice to do it one way or the other, right? As Uran's just like, hey, but like, aren't you overeating? You'll get all sleepy again, right? As he's like, these guys are super weak, but the elite fighters should show up soon, shouldn't they? And then from what I know, they'll be a little bit tougher. And he's like, hey, either way, I just gotta fuel up while I can. As we all of a sudden just see another Kabanagi guy like drop from the ceiling. Is like, oh, hey, he's in front of Uran and Hishaku now. And Hishaku's like, hey, come here, brace yourself. Come on, let's go and start battling all of this stuff out, right? And Uran's like, hey, you're saying all of that while yawning, as he's just like, oh. And she's like, hey, I told you you'd be getting sleepy here in the moment, right? But as this happens, another Kabanagi member appears here in the moment. He's like, okay, intruders, this battle ends here. And from what I can tell, he probably has like some yellow hair or something like that, wearing like the traditional Kabanagi uniform. And he has one of his hands behind his back. He has his left arm behind his back, and in his right hand, pretty much like holding it up beside him. It almost like reminds me of like the Statue of Liberty, if the Statue of Liberty like had its arm behind its back or whatever. And where its torch would be, he's just simply holding a small comb, of course, like a hair comb, right? And all of a sudden, we see another Kabanagi guy, sort of like with that like traditional samurai like top knot thing sort of going on, like a mainly bald center part of his head, and like a little bit of like a patch of hair, all braided together, like coming all out of the top, right? It's sort of forming like this little bit of like a bowed ridge on his head. We see that this guy just walks up and is like, oh, the Hishaku. So the rumors were true. Oh, you are a challenging boss. But let's minimize our losses. I'll go in alone. I'll keep them busy for a few seconds, and when I give the signal, focus your fire and blast me away with them. As we see, this guy just comes over and grabs the comb out of this, I'm going to call him like a blonde guy's hand. I don't know what else to really call him here in the moment. But he just picks up the comb as this guy's like, okay, sir, we got it, right? And either way, this guy just moves through here in the moment, grabs the comb, and starts combing his hair all back into that similar fashion. He throws the comb up behind him. The blonde guy sticks his like 2 fingers out and like catches it in between his fingers as he like closes them. And he's like, all right, ready? Let's begin. As that's where we just end the scene with like, hey, Uran and Hishaku, and presumably Talo is also still here as well, are going to be facing off this guy. And not to mention how this guy just said like, hey, I don't know if he's going to be like a martyr or if he's got like an ability that sort of like makes it so like he doesn't get hurt by like friendly fire or something, but just like the way it's like, hey, I'll deal with them, and then you guys presumably murder me with them to minimize our losses, right? A really interesting way for this character to sort of come up, and like just the way he's like, hey, I'm ready to die after I comb my hair, of course. It's just a little bit of an interesting character, right? But either way, we now cut over to, hey, here's our Hakuri and Kiri are, of course, going ahead and making their way down to the bottom level of the Kabanagi headquarters, where the Shinuchi currently is, right? As Kiri's just like, hey, fall behind me, Hakuri, like, hey, I'm pretty sure it's this way. It's like, let's go ahead and like round this corner. And as they go through it around this corner, oh, who would they bump into? Kiri calls them, oh, the big shots. As we see, it's none other than Azami here with, oh, I called his name earlier, Ichiki, that's what his name is. As we see, the Ichiki is pretty much getting a piggyback ride from Azami. It's honestly a little cute, you know what I'm saying, right? As I also love how both of them are like, oh, yo, Kiri, what are you doing here, pretty much, right? But either way, we just see Kiri's like, oh, hey, perfect timing to run into you guys. Like, we need you guys to take us to the Shinuchi, pretty much, right? And I love how Hakuri in the background is like, Azami is giving the short guy, like, an adult shoulder ride? Like, what's going on here, right? But we now see that all of these characters sort of like go ahead and make it into an elevator here in the moment. And we just see the elevator dial doing its thing, transporting down all of these floors. We just get like a big focus on the dial here in the moment, right? As Hakuri just says like, oh, Mr. Azami, but I thought you were up top fighting in like whatever those like threat elimination grounds were or whatever, right? And Azami pretty much explains like, hey, we shut down the threat elimination grounds, too much commotion on the inside of the HQ, so like no point for me to be up there pretty much, right? And he's like, hey, I'm really sorry that you had to go through and contend with all of those people. Like, I'm really glad that you're okay here in the moment, right? And Hakuri's just like, hey, I'm sorry, like everybody's just fought so hard to protect me here today. And we even see, like, all these characters are just, like, mentioning aspects here in the moment, right? As you see, Azami's like, yes, like, thank goodness Uruha was actually alive. Like, I didn't even know about that. So, like, a really good thing that he was able to pull through and help you out there in the moment, right? And even still, Ichiki just says, like, hey, we'll mourn the loss of Hukuto and all the others properly after we wrap all of this up. But, like, in the moment, this is the most important thing we can be doing, is dealing with this threat, right? And it says, like, hey, I hope tomorrow will be a calm day. But either way, Hakuri's like, hey, we will settle it, and we'll settle it once and for all. I'll transport the Shinichi into the warehouse, then the Hishaku's hands will simply be tied. And Azami's like, yeah, if only it were that easy. And Hakuri looks over, like, very questioningly, like, what do you mean by that, right? As Ichiki just speaks up, being like, hey, what Azami means is that we've actually surrounded all of the Hishaku invaders. Yes, they're all expert fighters, but at the end of the day, they're just individual sorcerers. It shouldn't take long to contain them. As here in the moment, we see mainly the, like, as I was calling him a few chapters ago, the Renji Ibarai looking dude. Mainly this is the guy that, like, was very upset, like, hey, don't break the walls, Natsuki. It's this guy pretty much, right? We see that him and another Kabunagi member have come through, and they've met up with who I've been calling Dale. He is who is presumed to be the strongest Hishaku member, or at least that's what Yura called him. And we see that he's, like, sort of, like, just sitting on the ground in, like, his terrible outfit here in the moment. And we just see that these two characters, these two Kabunagi members, are walking up to him, presumably getting ready to fight him here in the moment, right? But either way, Ichiki just continues being like, hey, but the real issue is that even if the Hishaku themselves can't have expected to charge in with such large numbers or with such small numbers and actively defeat us here in the moment, as Ichiki just thinks like, hey, there's got to be something else behind this. Like, for example, the Shinichi. They put the Shinichi up for auction at the Rakuzachi, almost as if they were handing it over to the Kabunagi. If, for example, they'd somehow programmed the Shinichi to be remotely controlled, handing it over would almost been like handing over a bomb into our midst, pretty much, right? But Ichiki just continues being like, hey, but when we resealed it, we inspected it and ruled all of that out. However, but Hakuri's like, hey, but, like, we should just go down there and it should be okay, right? If I'm able to transport it away, like, there shouldn't be an issue. As Ichiki just says, like, yes, that's why I'm worried. As Hakuri now just looks up here in the moment, towards the elevator, which is now pointing down, and he can see the Shinichi here in the moment. Of course, all of the binding rope is going around some torii gates here in the moment, helping seal the Shinichi here in the second, right? And as Hakuri just gets a really good look at the Shinichi, we just see that his eye forms a Iso mask here in the moment as he's getting ready to transport the blade away. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi. Again, chapter number 93. This chapter was titled, if I can stall long enough to get the chapter out, Finishing Touches. And yeah, this was a really good chapter, all things considered, right? On one hand, it's just really fun to see the battle between, of course, Hukuto, Yura, Uruha, and Natsuki just continue. It's really fun. I really like all of these character dynamics and sort of like the relationships that each of these characters have with each other here in the moment, right? Because, like, on one hand, hey, we know the relationship between the good guys and the bad guys here, right? Of course, mainly focusing on, like, hey, Uruha and Natsuki's whole thing, and then how Hokuto's, like, this big, like, outgoing guy, and Yura is a little bit more reserved. They play off each other really well. And of course, in the whole thing of like, hey, both Natsuki and Uruha don't like Yura because, like, hey, you know what he did? He's the leader of the Hishaku, and at the same point, it's like, hey, here's why they don't like Hokuto. He murdered people they care about, pretty much. And, like, vice versa, Hokuto's like, hey, you guys are, or at least one of you is, like, an enchanted blade wielder. You've got really good sword skills, and Ibuki Misaka didn't really fulfill all of this for me. It's just really fun, and again, that double-page spread that Hokuzono gave us in the middle of this chapter, or really, like, the first third of this chapter, is just so incredibly well done. Like, it just is really neat. Again, going on to the whole idea of following the Bald Shaku, Uran, and, of course, Talo, as they're sort of using their sorcery, like, hey, Uran's got ice powers. It's really cool, you know what I'm saying? Like, whenever I read that, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I just like how she's got the ice powers here in the moment, and the sorcery, like, frees this person over, and maybe, like, is she related in some way to the clan of the women with cold skin, of course, or the woman with the ice-cold skin that, of course, Hakuri had this big moment with, and if Hakuri ever comes in contact with her, is he ever going to, like, have to deal with that trauma once more? Not to mention, like, oh, how does Demon Bite, guys, the Bald Shaku's ability work? Like, he has to eat people to use his power? Like, I don't fully get it, but of course, I don't think I'm fully supposed to get it right now. And then moving into all the idea of, like, hey, they ran into Azami and Ichiki, and they're having this whole conversation here. Hey guys, post-production Glowplasma here, and quickly I just wanted to talk about my prediction for the next chapter of Kagurabachi, and really just the following chapters of Kagurabachi in general. I sort of realized in editing this video that I didn't mention any of that at all, and like, it's actually very important with the whole idea of, I personally believe that Hakuri is going to be taken over by the Shinichi, right? It really is one of the few things that makes sense, is like, here in the moment, Ichiki's like, man, there's something wrong, like, Hakuri probably shouldn't touch this Enchanted Blade. And also here in the moment, we get this whole idea of Hakuri like, I'm going to go touch that Enchanted Blade. So it really leads me into the whole idea of that Hakuri is either going to be like using the Shinichi's power from like his own body in some sort of way, or he is just going to be like controlled by the Sword Saint in general and then using all of like his abilities or just like doing his will pretty much, which is going to be wrecking and destroying everything in the Kabanaki headquarters, right? Which is going to be probably lead to a really nice moment around the chapter 100 mark when, hey, we have to deal with like, hey, Chihiro and Sama are going to get here at some point, and Chihiro, of course, one of his best friends, his best allies is Hakuri. So let me mute Discord here real quick, probably a proper thing for me to do. I was recording in OBS earlier, now I'm recording in my editing software. A little bit not how it normally works there, right? But either way, just the general idea of, I lost my train of thought there. What was I saying? Yeah, Chihiro's going to end up protecting Hakuri here in the moment and getting him back to be like, hey man, we're good, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to help save you, and that'll probably be a very nice chapter 100 moment, or chapter 100 is honestly more than I expect Hakuri or Chihiro to end up showing up in the moment, and like, hey, Summer's going to be finding a Sword Saint, doing all of that various stuff there, but all of that's like very more fringe theories besides for the whole idea. Hakuri, take it over. Chihiro, save Hakuri. Back to the main video now. And on one hand, I can understand why people are like, yeah, he's the traitor. Like, it's no way it's not him. I mean, Azami, not the traitor. I mean, that much I hope is really just obvious, is like, I don't see any reason why he would want to, like, thwart Chihiro or, like, just thwart the Hishaku in general, or why he'd want to work the Hishaku when they killed one of his best friends, who, of course, was Kunishige there in the moment, right? And, of course, getting into the whole idea of, like, hey, Ichiki, like, I don't know, like, I know there's some really good theories out there, and ones that are planned very well, and, like, oh, that makes a whole lot of sense. But at the same time, I just don't get that vibe off him. Like I've said plenty of times here, I just think it's Kudo. I think Kudo is still good and alive. Have you ever read Bleach? You know what I'm saying? The same thing happens there, and I just really would like that to be the case here in Kagurabachi as well, and I am still rooting for Kudo. But yeah, really, I don't have anything else to say about this chapter. It's very intriguing getting into the whole idea of, oh, are we simply going to be transporting in the Shinichi next chapter? Or I'm guessing they're going to try and then like, oh no, the Sword Saint is some issues, right? Like he just stood up a few minutes ago. Or maybe we actually get like the big traitor view if it is like Ichiki, which I don't think it is. Maybe he's like, oh man, you can't do that, Hakuri, because I'm going to stab you first because I'm working with the Hishaku, right? And also we have the other plot point of like, hey guys, we have all these small battles that could be occurring now. We have, like, seeing what all of this, like, this comb guy who, like, I'm going to kill myself to fight all of these guys while also combing his hair here in the moment. It's like, are we going to actually actively see these battles play out until the point where it's like, hey, go back over to Natsuki and Uruha and all of those people, right? And also, where's Chihiro and Samura? We know they're coming. They're going to be here at some point. Honestly, I think that'd be a really awesome moment if we, like, can hold off 7 more chapters and be like, hey, Chapter 100, Chihiro comes in to help out Hakuri at the end of the day, meet up with Uruha again, who he thought was dead, and also get Sombra here on the scene to presumably die to the Sword Saint, as I think is going to happen. And yeah, good chapter of Kagurabachi. I have nothing else to say here in the moment. If you all did enjoy this video, well, very lucky for you guys, I have plenty of our Kagurabachi content here on my YouTube channel at Glowplasma, or you're watching one of my videos right now, so you sort of know who I am, right? Either way, there'll be a place to follow the Kagurabachi videos I've done in the description box of this video, along with the end card of this video as well. If you want to hear some of my other thoughts on Kagurabachi, as I mentioned earlier, I'm on a podcast called the Kabanagi Headquarters. So it's a Kagurabachi podcast, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube as well. I don't think I've got a link down in the description box down below. I probably should, you know what I'm saying? So go check for it down there if I remember to, and if I don't, like, leave me a comment. I'll figure it out, right? And also, like, hey, if you want to leave a comment, tell me what you think about Uran's name. Is it cool? Is it bad? Do you think Bingo is the bald Shaku's name? I'm honestly just going to call him that probably now, because, like, it's just cool, like, Bingo, right? But either way, I will catch you guys next time for Kagurabachi chapter number 94. Until then, this will be Glowplasma, signing out.